Hey guys! I'm Irene, and today I'm going to show you how to make this Easter egg potpourri. It's a wonderfully fragrant centerpiece and a great gift. It's also so much fun to make. The eggs have been emptied so you can keep them for years. They are filled with potpourri, or dried perfumed flowers. One of my mom's friends introduced me to this way of decorating the eggs with fabric. I love that it looks quilted and the feel of the fabric is really nice. The nest is made using paper strips glued together and shaped on a bowl. First, we'll blow out the eggs. Then we'll decorate and fill them, we'll make the nest, and then finally assemble all of the components together. So let's get started. These are the materials we'll need for blowing out the eggs. I'll first show you the end result. Using a pin, we need to make 2 holes per egg. We need one larger hole that is big enough to put the potpourri flowers in, and a small hole that we can blow into so that the contents come out of the larger hole. I try to use potpourri with smaller flowers like lavender or jasmine, so that the larger hole doesn't need to be too big. But no matter what types of flowers you're using, you want the hole to be at least 1 centimeter in diameter, so that it's large enough for the scent to flow out. We want to put the holes on the sides of the eggs because they'll be laid on their sides in the nest. They can be laid with the larger hole facing outwards so that the fragrance of the potpourri is stronger, or downwards to hide the hole. We'll start by cleaning the eggs. We'll be putting our mouth on them later, so we want to kill the bacteria and salmonella on the surfaces of the eggs. I first wash them thoroughly with warm water and soap, then I submerge them in boiling water for about 10 seconds. It'd be good to wash your pin as well. Once the eggs have been cleaned, we're ready to start blowing out the eggs. I use 2 bowls, one to hold the eggs and one to collect the contents of the eggs so we can make a nice omelet or something later. For each egg, we'll first prepare the larger hole. Dry it with a paper towel if it's still wet. We want to make a series of pinholes along the outline of the hole. You can scratch the shell a bit to thin it out before piercing it. I first make pinholes on the top, bottom, and sides of the hole to get an idea of the size. Take your time making the pinholes, making sure not to crack the shell. It gets easier with practice and you might break a few eggs in the process, but that's okay. Just save the contents so that it's not wasted and try again on another egg. Then I make more pinholes between them to complete the outline. It's better if the pinholes are close together because that helps control the shape of the hole. Once the outline is done, we can make the small hole on the other side of the egg. Make a single pinhole, again scratching the shell to thin it out first if needed. After making the single pinhole, stick the pin all the way into the hole and swirl it around carefully to break up the egg yolk. This will make it easier to blow out the egg. Do this process of preparing the holes for all the eggs you're planning to blow out. Once you have done this for all your eggs, we'll blow out each egg one by one. We need to remove the eggshells on the larger hole. We can do this by sticking our pin into the holes and lifting upwards. It's easier to lift along the outline. Once the eggshell has been lifted by the pin, you can pick it out with your fingers. Make sure to remove the membrane as well so that it doesn't block the hole. Hold the egg over the other bowl for collecting the contents, with the larger hole facing downwards. Before we blow into the small hole, we want to clean off any contents that might have leaked out. Dip a paper towel in hot water and wipe this side of the egg to try to kill the bacteria and salmonella. Use your mouth to blow air into the small hole and the rest of the contents should come out. Set the shell aside and blow out the rest of your eggs. Once the eggshells are emptied, we need to wash the inside of the shells thoroughly. If any bits of egg are left in there, it's going to smell bad in a few days. I first use warm water to rinse the inside and wash off any traces of egg. Because my holes are large enough, I can just shake out the water. If the water isn't coming out for you, you can blow out the water. I rinse the inside a couple of times. Then I submerge the shells in hot water for about 15 seconds. Make sure the water isn't boiling too much, otherwise your shells can hit the bottom of the pot and crack. When taking these shells out of the hot water, make sure to let them drain first, otherwise you could get the hot water on yourself and that's really no fun. After that, I do a thorough rinse using warm water and soap. Leave the eggshells to dry completely. You can lay them with a large hole facing downwards to let excess water drain out more easily. Once the eggshells are dry, we can decorate them. These are the materials we'll need for decorating and filling the eggshells. If you have the time, an optional step is to strengthen the eggshells by sealing the inside with a mixture of equal parts water and Mod Podge. This can really help your eggshells last longer. However, it does take a few days for the smell of the Mod Podge to go away. If you don't have enough time, the last thing we want is for the smell of the Mod Podge to clash with the fragrance of the potpourri. Mix equal parts water and Mod Podge to create a liquid that's thin enough to easily drip and pour. Because we made a larger hole, we can spoon a bit of the liquid into the eggshell. Swirl the shell around to coat the inside and let the excess drip out. Wipe off any liquid on the surface of the eggshell with a damp paper towel so that it's ready for decorating. If you're sealing multiple eggs at a time, it would be good to make a drying rack for the eggs at this point. Remaining Mod Podge liquid can leak out of the hole, so we want to prop them upright. To dry each egg, I stick 4 pins in a piece of cardboard. Make sure the pins are in the cardboard far enough such that they don't really move. This creates a little stand for the egg. Prop the egg on the pins. Next, let's prepare the fabric for decorating. For each egg, find 4 to 6 colors of fabric that you like. If you have scraps of quilting fabric, that is perfect for this. Make sure the fabric is flat and iron it if needed. Using pinking shears, cut little rectangles. My rectangles are about 5/8 of an inch by 7/8 of an inch, but it doesn't have to be super precise. I've even got some pieces that are odd shapes. Personally, I think a greater variety of shapes makes the pattern more interesting. You will also need to prepare a rectangle of mesh fabric for later. This mesh fabric has more spaces in it and will be used to cover the larger hole so that the flowers don't fall out, but the fragrance of the potpourri can still escape. We want to glue the fabric pieces onto the egg one by one. If you did the optional step of sealing the inside of the eggshell with the Mod Podge liquid, it'd be good to put a piece of newspaper down in case any of that liquid drips out. I find it easier to start on the side with a small hole. I swipe a thin layer of Mod Podge on the back of each piece using a pin, and then glue it onto the egg. We want to apply a thin layer of Mod Podge to prevent a sticky mess, but we do want to make sure that the Mod Podge reaches all of the edges. As we glue each piece, overlap them to eliminate any gaps. Smooth each piece down so that they are flat on the eggshell. If your hands have too much Mod Podge on them, you can stop and wash them at any point. We're now getting near the larger hole. We don't want to cover the larger hole since we'll need it later to put the potpourri in, but it's okay to have little bits of fabric hanging off of it. And we're done decorating an eggshell. To dry each egg, I use the same drying rack by sticking 4 pins in a piece of cardboard. The egg can be propped on the pins. Once the Mod Podge has fully dried, fill the egg with some potpourri. If you did the step of sealing the inside of the eggshells, wait until the smell of the Mod Podge is gone before filling them with potpourri. Then take that piece of mesh fabric we prepared earlier to cover the larger hole so that the flowers don't fall out but the scent can still escape. Put Mod Podge on the edges of the mesh fabric and glue it down. We've finished decorating and filling the eggshells. These are the materials we'll need for making the nest. To make the nest, we'll glue and shape brown paper strips around a bowl covered with a plastic Ziploc bag. For the paper strips, you can use this type of shredded and crinkled paper that's used a lot for packing and gift wrapping, or you can cut out your own strips. First, we want to wrap our bowl in a Ziploc bag. Open the bag and slip the bowl inside. Then, fold the excess corners and edges towards the inside of the bowl and tape them down. We want the plastic on the outside of the bowl to be as smooth as possible since it will affect the shape of the nest. Then make a mixture of equal parts water and Mod Podge. We do want this mixture to be thin so that most of it can drip down the sides of the bowl. If the mixture is too thick, you will get larger patches of dried Mod Podge on the nest. Now that we have our bowl covered and the Mod Podge mixture made, we can start building the nest. Before we begin, try once again to make the plastic on the bowl as smooth as possible. You can tape the outside if needed. Soak the paper strips inside the Mod Podge mixture and start layering each strip on the bowl. You want this crisscrossing so that a nice basket is formed. It's okay if the strips are not completely flat. It will give the nest a bit more texture. This is one of my favorite parts of this craft. Isn't it therapeutic? I find it so relaxing. Every once in a while, turn the bowl around so you can get to the areas that still have a lot of empty spaces. Once you have a thick enough basket for the nest, leave it aside to dry. Once the nest is dry, carefully loosen the edges from the Ziploc bag and any tape, and then lift it off the bowl. You can trim off some edges, then fill the basket with some dry paper strips to make the nest fuller. And now we're done making the nest. We're ready to assemble all the components together. We've made the nest and the potpourri eggs. It's also handy to have extra brown paper strips so you can fill some of the empty spaces in the nest. If you want a more fragrant potpourri, lay the eggs with the larger hole facing outwards. Once you're happy with the arrangement of the eggs, you can put in more paper strips to make the nest fuller. And there we finish making the Easter egg potpourri. It's such a lovely Easter and spring decoration. Comment below on how it turned out for you. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe and bell button so you don't miss my next videos. I'll be showing more holiday craft ideas. Hope to see you in my next video!